If I think back to being a child myself, I can say with absolute certainty that my primary attachment figure was my mother, the person in the world most important to me. And as a child, I can recall clearly, yes, being close to her, knowing she was there, having her attention was pretty motivating for me as a young child. Luckily, I got what I needed there most of the time, but it underlines its importance to me. What would it have been like if I hadn't had that love and attention? How would I be different now? There's a lot to attachment theory. Let me know if you'd like to hear more about it in a future podcast. There's the famous work of Mary Ainsworth and Harry Harlow as well as John Bowlby, which added to the theory. Again, if you're familiar with psychology, you may know these names, you may know this work. But translating this psychology knowledge into how it works in practice in relationships is a whole other subject. It's well worth understanding, but the links aren't necessarily obvious. So briefly, what is the attachment theory that comes mainly from the work of John Bowlby? And what does it teach us about relationships? The theory that is useful for each of us to understand about our patterns in relationships is that we all form attachments in one or two of several ways. You may be one of those fortunate people who are securely attached and in a securely attached relationship. In that case, relationships are just not a problem for you. Relationship just works and it's simple and comfortable. If you have one of the other attachment styles, on the other hand, it means there are likely to be more problems. If you have an avoidant attachment style, for example, that's avoidant, that means that your feeling, your natural instinct is that relationships are risky. You might get hurt, or worse still, trapped in a relationship. Relationships feel dangerous emotionally, so you try to avoid them, or you play around the edges of relationship and make sure you've got the upper hand. You may avoid relationship altogether, or you may date but avoid anything that sounds like commitment. And if you have the opposite problem, we'd say that you were anxiously attached, or you have anxious attachment. ANXIOUS. There is some confusion in the naming here, which probably reflects how the ideas have evolved. So today, when we say someone has anxious attachment, we usually mean that they're very dependent emotionally on the people they're attached to. So much so that all kinds of things may generate anxiety. Any possibility, even a tiny risk to the relationship, may create anxiety in the anxiously attached person. So people with anxious attachment can be quite clingy. We use that word of children, where they cling literally to the parent. They may have their arms wrapped round your leg. For a 3-year-old, this is perfectly normal in their development. But as adults in relationship, someone with anxious attachment may need constant reassurance that you're not going to leave them. An anxiously attached partner may not like you going out or working away, or they may send you text messages all the time. Anxiously attached people work very hard to ensure that the relationship continues. So there are many ways in which these attachment styles play out. But it's perhaps most visible when people are dating. dating. I spend a lot of time as a psychotherapist talking with people about the ins and outs, the actions and reactions on dating apps, because it's so problematic. So let's talk about that study that relates this to music. Researchers analysed the lyrics, that means the words, of top hits from 2019. to identify what attachment styles are being shown in the songs.